packages and going to the post office or the UPS store? Are you tired of not knowing what you'll pay when you get there? Just Ship offers pickup service and flat rate packaging and postage rates, which takes the guesswork out of shipping while saving you time and money. So quit wasting valuable time and money. Call or text Just Ship at 352-234-3840. That's 352-234-3840. Just Shipped.
You're getting ready to move and you work hard. That's why you call Two Men in a Truck, 352-289-0666. You need pros. Trained professional moving experts to do the heavy lifting for you. That's why you call Two Men in a Truck, 352-289-0666. They care about your things as much as you do, and they do it fast and right. That's why you call Two Men in a Truck, 352-289-0666. Visit twomeninatruck.com and get moving.
Two Men in a Truck.
Get it for less at the DIY Home Center outlet. Get top quality real wood cabinets the same or less than the big box stores are selling the cheap stuff. And that's not all. Drywall screws big box stores are $6.47 a pound. At DIY only $4.99. Plus DIY has the largest selection of mobile home parts and accessories anywhere. From carpet to doors, get the DIY supplies you need for less. The DIY Home Center outlet. We are your building material closeout store. 2191 Northwest 10th Street, just 2 miles east of I-75.
You're having another great day and you have good taste tuning into WOCA The Source with Ocala Talks and Tom Schmitz. Well, 1 out of 2 isn't bad.
Welcome back to Ocala Talks on a Monday. Last week I was talking about Wesley Wilcox, supervisor of elections, and his appearance on CNN, and I said he referred to my elections. I went back and watched the interview again, because somebody had reached out to me and said, I don't think he actually said my election. I think he was referring to the elections, but that nobody was going to look and over his shoulder during the election. And I went back and looked at the interview, and they were right. He was saying that he's not going to be. He implied, or I took it. The implication was he's not going to have anybody micromanage his electoral results. But he did not ever say my elections in that interview, as I had erroneously said on the air on earlier in the week, last week. So, but right now, Wesley Wilcox reached out to me this morning, and he's online with us this morning. Supervisor of Elections Wesley Wilcox joins us. Wesley, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tom. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and also thank you very much for clarifying the statement. You're right. I that's not really anything that I would say because, as you know and I know, the elections are our elections, and that's more along the terminology.
Certainly, but is my thought process right that you don't care for the thoughts of being micromanaged or someone looking over your shoulders as you're coming up with your tabulations?
No, that's not accurate, Tom. We've made it a big deal, not only here in Marion County, but I think in the state of Florida, of being transparent. We do public logic and accuracy tests. I post. We were going to do that. I've had candidates. I had a candidate at the city of Ocala election come in and watch the pre-election logic and accuracy test. We also, after each and every election, a lot of people don't recognize, but after each and every election, we do an audit, and we do it in the public as well, and we notify the candidates, the parties, and you can come watch it. I will tell you, it's not all extremely interesting because literally what people do is look at a ballot, and if it's a vote for candidate A, they put it in this pile, and if it's a vote for candidate B, they put it in another pile. So I'm all about transparency. I have done a number of tours in here. People have come in and done question and answer sessions. I prefer people to come in and talk to me or talk to and see what we do, so that they don't sit back out on the street someplace and listen to somebody that has no idea, from a national level, tell them what's happening. Come look. So I want to be open and transparent in anything and everything we do, Tom.
Are you overly concerned with, or have you reached your boiling point yet about people who are continuing to say that the election fraud is an issue that needs to be more in the forefront, that the elections need to be followed closely because there are people that don't believe the elections are on the up and up? Is that something that you think's run its course and we should move on from?
No, definitely not. Safety and security in our elections is utmost. You know, the saying in the state of Florida, easy to vote and hard to cheat. And if you can find a place where people are cheating, you know, we in the state of Florida have worked over the last 18 years of getting better and better with our elections. Everybody, you know, pretty much rightfully so, remembers the state of Florida in the year 2000. You know, we've made a multitude of changes in that last 18 to 20 years to improve our election process. And so safety and security is the foundation of this thing. So, we do, there was, somebody made a comment about, removing voters who are no longer eligible. You know, since November of last year, we've removed over 20,000 people that have either passed away, moved out of the state, or something else become, they quit voting and we can't contact them. You know, we've removed, it's hard to imagine, but 6,000 people have passed away in Marion County since November 4th of last year. Go ahead.
I will tell you this, Wesley, and it's not your county, it's not Marion County, our county. It was in a county down south, but my wife's grandmother, who has been dead for 14 years, keeps receiving ballots through the mail. Been dead 14 years.
And that should not happen, Tom. I have
not our county, by the way, not our county.
Right.
Down south
I have no excuse for whoever that is. They're obviously not doing list maintenance as well as they should. We do list maintenance in Marion County, and we do it in twofold. We do what's called NCOA, which is National Change of Address. So if you make a change of address, I get a notification. The other thing that we do is if you don't vote in two general election, which is federal law, then I mail you a notice. It's kind of like your homestead exemption notice. You know, if everything's cool and you still live there and you just didn't vote, that's fine. That's your right as an American citizen. But if something's changed, it's going to come back to me, and then I can start a removal process in this. So we take that very seriously.
Let me ask you this, because you are you were recently elected to the head of the state group that of electoral supervisors, election supervisors. So is this a situation as being the head of that group now that you would like to address, is some of the erroneous people that are on rolls throughout the 67 counties, or is that something that is up to the individual election supervisor in that county?
No, that's definitely on all of us. And I have pushed, and from the backside of doing better list maintenance. You know, we're writing stuff every day from a list maintenance perspective to try to find people that are no longer eligible. Something that we joined, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we as supervisors tried to convince the legislature to join a consortium called ERIC. I will tell you, when we pushed it forward, I believe that was the only bill that year that received unanimous support in both houses and both senates, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats alike. I was on the stage when Governor DeSantis signed us to join ERIC, and since then, since we've joined ERIC, our rolls are cleaner now than they've ever been, because what we can do prior to this, we could not have no access to the voter rolls in Georgia or Michigan or any place else. And now all 30 states that are members, we can now run a report to say, okay, who's a duplicate across states? And we're removing those type of people that we've never had access before. And so that was pushed by the state association and signed by the governor in this thing. So we're on this and getting better every single day.
Are you finding that now that this has been pushed through, that people that live near the state line, are you finding that there's a large number of people that vote in both states, or is this something that's very rare?
I don't think it's all that often, and I don't think it's more people that are in a close proximity. I think it's people that, summer someplace up north and winter down here, and because they own property in both situations, feel that they're rightfully so that they could cast a ballot in both situations, and we educate them fairly quickly that that's illegal, and so whoever has the most recent activity keeps the record, and the other record gets canceled.
So over the weekend, I saw a interview where it looks like you've become a name known to Roger Stone as he talks about Loomis and her worry that running against Daniel Webster, that there might be some irregularities. So now Roger Stone's got you on his radar. Does that bother you, Wesley, that national pundits like that are concerned about Marion County elections?
Unfortunately, and it's something I never really thought about, being elected to, the president of the state association, I want to do good stuff. The goal for all supervisors is to conduct good elections. And, I was hoping being president, once again, it would highlight Marion County and the good people that we have here. We've got, I think one of our current county court judges is the president of the State Association of County Court Judges. Mr. Ellsperman, when he was clerk of the courts, was president of the Clerk of the Courts Association. And, we've had a fairly recent member of our House be Speaker of the House, 10 or 15 years ago. And, giving the opportunity to Marion County and the people in Marion County that do good stuff, I think is good recommendations or good visibility. I think some of the statements that Mr. Stone has made are inaccurate and unfair. I heard a comment on one of his statements the other day was, being a government entity, we should be able to connect the voter rolls with, I think what he said was the Department of Health. And I think that's a wonderful idea. The state of Florida, we actually did that about 15 years ago. I know your mother or mother-in-law is obviously an exception to that. Grandmother-in-law is an exception to that rule. But unfortunately, I know for a matter of fact, we've been connected to the Bureau of Vital Statistics, I think about 10 years. And I don't think it goes back. I don't think it goes, retro type stuff. But currently, when people pass away, I'm notified within 6 to 7 days. And I unfortunately had a member of a service club that I'm in. Gentleman passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I happened to look at the record, and yes, within 6 days, I was notified. I'm sure, as you mentioned, there are exceptions to that. So, highlighting from a negative perspective, that's not something I would ever want upon Marion County. I vote here. I'm a member of the public here. We constantly, from a national perspective, people want to make us look as bad as possible. And, the only thing, my purpose is out here, or one of them is to try to make everybody know that I believe Marion County is the best place in the world to live, and want to make sure that I do us well, and so that's my goal.
We a lot of talk was made of a couple years ago when a convicted felon somehow was able to win a seat on the Ocala City Council. Then that was redone, where Irie Bethea was actually in a special election, was actually won that seat. But there's a lot of confusion with the new legislation of felons get their rights to vote back and everything, and then felons from other states, do they get their rights that the other states granted them versus what Florida would give Florida felons? where are we right now with felons and their ability to vote, and felons from other states who relocate to Florida, whose rights in the state that they were given, like in Georgia, the only thing you can't do in Georgia as a convicted felon, once your rights are reinstated, is own a gun. You can still run for office and everything. You have to deal with the fact that somebody's going to point out you're a convicted felon, but you can still run for office and everything. But if those rights were given to somebody in, say, the state of Georgia and restored back in Georgia, when they come to Florida, are they then eligible to run for office because their rights were restored that way in Georgia? How's the felon? Because that seems to be a cloudy area in Florida right now.
You're right, Tom. And I know as soon as that amendment passed, it was fairly cloudy after that. I believe most of it has been cleared up to where, if you were a felon, and other than there are a couple of it, and first off, let me clarify, I am not an expert in this area. That is not one of my expertise. But I believe, your rights to vote have been restored, and I believe they've actually changed it here recently to where you can run for office. That's a little shaky in my head. I don't know exactly. And your right would be restored coming from another state as long as it's not one of the felony convictions that there's an exception to. I believe murder and sexual assault, I believe, are some of the exceptions in there. But other than that, I think your rights to vote at least have been restored based off of that amendment. But like I said, Tom, that's not my expertise. There are people that have legal degrees that are fighting this thing out and arguing this thing, and much, much more educated in that than I am.
Yeah, it seems that we gave felons the right to vote again in Florida, but we didn't really set guidelines on how they were supposed to vote or what they were allowed to do. Could they run for office? It just seems like there's more questions than answers with the new legislation. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis. The amendment passed, and I can't remember the exact year that passed. I want to say it was around 2016. And then from there, once the amendment passes, then the legislature goes in, if need be, and does enacting legislation that kind of puts the rules of how all of that flows together. And so that's kind of been, I believe, some of the court cases out of that, clarifying, okay, what does this mean? Murder, what does that mean? Is that, first-degree murder or second-degree murder, and try to clarify some of those things as you go through, I think are some of the legal nuances that are kind of outside of my scope of knowledge.
Now, we have two runoffs coming up. We have the District 3 runoff and the District 4 runoff. One is a special election. Is there any differentiation between a special election and one of these, except for the special elections being held and the time of office is shorter? There's no really something to differentiate those two elections, except for one is actually just for a shorter period of time you're holding office. Am I correct?
That's accurate, Tom. It's from a voter perspective, there's really no difference. From a candidate perspective, in this instance, like you mentioned, the term of office will only be a 2-year term because you're filling the unexpired term of a member who is resigning. And so the member, whoever wins in District 4, they'll be up for a re-election or up for election again in 2023. So it'll just be the 2-year term, which is the unexpired portion of the current term. But you're accurate from a voter perspective. They're virtually the same.
Are you surprised anymore by things that you hear from people or you see from people during elections and election cycles?
Every once in a while I make the mistake and say, "Oh, I'm not going to get shocked by something," and I get proven wrong every election. In every election, there's a new term that I've never heard. There was a term back in 2020 that got fairly popular, and it was called a naked ballot. And I've been conducting elections now for 20 years, or 30 years, 20 here in Marion County, and I'd never heard the term, so I had to go, ferret out the news article to try to determine what that is. And just for your own knowledge, in case somebody ever uses the term naked ballot with you, trivia night, it's when a voter who votes by mail doesn't return the secrecy sleeve around the ballot. I guess in some states you're required to. In the state of Florida, you're not. You can include the secrecy sleeve or not. So, there's always something new with every election, and it's always interesting.
Wesley, I got you here for about 3-4 more minutes. And thank you so much. You reached out to us to clarify what we had talked about, I'd talked about on this show last week, and kudos to you for reaching out and taking out time to answer my questions that I had. But what's the difference? And this is one of my questions somebody asks me all the time, and I can never give the answer. And I thought, well, I got Wesley on the phone now. I'll get him. What's the difference between an absentee ballot and a mail-in ballot? What's the difference?
From a voter perspective, once again, there's no real difference. I will tell you, in Florida state statute, if you go back about 15 years ago, it used the term absentee. And back prior to, I can't remember if it was 2002 or 2004, to vote that method, you literally had to be absent. You had to either have a note from your doctor or a note from your employer stating that you would be absent from the county and could not go to the polls on Election Day. That law changed, once again, I can't remember if it was 2002 or 2004, to where we became a no-excuse absentee state. And therefore, 10 or 12 years after that, around 2015, 2016, the state of Florida just changed the terminology, removed the word absentee, and changed it to vote by mail because you no longer needed to be absent. And so it's virtually the same. A lot of people still use the term absentee. I try to always use the term vote by mail because you don't need to be absent. It's just the manner that you decide to cast the ballot.
With the pandemic, I understand why mail-in voting exploded. Vote by mail exploded. But now as the vaccines are taking effect, we're coming out of the pandemic, do you expect to see a decrease in mail-in ballots, or is this something that's going to be the norm from here on out?
It's hard to tell, Tom. If you kind of go 2020 and the way people voted, kind of through it wasn't normal, and I hate to use that term, new normal, and I don't know what it's going to be. I think a lot of people, especially in county and federal elections, like to go to early voting sites. Early voting has been, the method that's continued to grow. I thought vote by mail, if you'd asked me before 2020, I would have said it was fairly mature, meaning it's probably not going to grow much. 2020, like you said, it grew exponentially. Do I think it'll go back to what it was before? Probably so, just because people want to get out and go. But Election Day continues to be the method that continues to decline. Fewer and fewer people are taking advantage on the actual Election Day.
Do you understand, or can you kind of grasp why there's a group of people that think mail-in ballots could be a little shaky at times? Case in point, my grandmother-in-law, my wife's grandmother, still to this day down in Northport, receives an election ballot. She's been gone 14 years. Can you understand how people have a little, circumstance that they don't really trust all the mail-in ballots?
Well, first off, I'd like to get your great mother-in-law.
We took care of it. We called Northport and took care of it. Oh,
good, because I was going to help you with that. The thing is, when we mail a vote-by-mail ballot, it's to a very specific person, and when it comes back, we check each and every signature. Literally, yours come back. If you vote by mail, we're going to pull up your voter record and literally compare it to the signature that we have on file. So if anybody else had ever signed that, it would have been rejected for signature mismatch anyway. So it's a good method for those that use it. So each person, whether you vote by mail, early voting, or election day, in the state of Florida, we give you all three options, and I think each of them have their benefits. And I've participated in all three. I've done all three methods over the last 20 years here in Marion County, so I like having options.
Wesley Wilcox, he's a supervisor of elections for Marion County. I vote the Tuesday of. That's always have, and that's just me, but I understand that you need options. Wesley, thanks so much for reaching out to us and taking time to talk candidly about the situation that arose from your interview last week. And sorry we got something erroneous, but we corrected that, and much success to you and yours, and we look forward to a good runoff and then a good national election next year.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity, Tom.
Wesley Wilcox, Supervisor of Elections. We'll be right back after this timeout. You're listening to Ocala Talks on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Broadcasting from the Ocala International Airport, this is WOCA AM, W242CA FM, Ocala.